Uh-oh. Oh, there it goes. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
All right. Three, two, 1, 0. Have a great show.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Higher Vibrations, and so are you. Today, I am honored to be in a conversation once again with Guardian of Orion, or Jay Zoltan. You can find him on YouTube as Jay Zoltan or Guardian of Orion. I've noticed that because that was what his channel was named before. That's his
Yes.
handle on YouTube.
Yeah, you can find it by both ways. But I thought the new incarnation would be great to be called like something closer to my real earthly name. It's something more relatable to humans. But yeah, like to anyone else's, I'm Guardian. Like that's my high vibrational name. Like I prefer that a lot more.
Yeah. And I remember when I first started talking to Guardian all of those years ago now. um uh I didn't know what to call him because a lot of people were calling him Zoltan, and some people can do the Z. That's really exotic, and like I can't. But anyway, finally asking him, and he said, "You can call me Guardian." I was so relieved because this is Guardian to me, the energy that he brings forward. And we'll ask some questions probably regarding that, but there's just this Guardian's energy that comes from this man that sits before us today. And I want to do a really quick introduction before we get started, is that Guardian here was my first person who spoke of what it's like to interact with these higher dimensional beings, that I knew to feel exactly how I had my experience was. And it was a really important thing. I think this was back in 2013.
Yeah.
And was that right?
Yeah, it goes way back.
Right. These videos are no longer available, unfortunately, on his channel. However, I went back and tried to look at some of the earlier videos, and they're no longer. But I wanted to say this because I had no idea that that was the same person. Fast forward down to 2020, I'm homeless with my 5-year-old, and this person's being presented to me, and the energy that was coming for. I didn't see what he looked like. He was doing light language, and it was like a lot of psychedelic kind of colors and stuff, and it was really pretty. Then he started to do these Monday night lives, and it would just be kind of like I do, where you just talk to the audience. And that was the first time in my life as an adult where I openly said, okay, it's time to talk, which is why Guardian here is why my name is Higher Vibrations, is because I wanted to talk to people in his channel, and I didn't want anybody to know who I was because I wasn't ready. And I, still that, witch's wound kind of concept. Anyway, Guardian here provided the ability for me to connect with other individuals on this earthly plane, as he puts it, and made it so I could have these connections and these contacts. And though I'd been getting encouragement from my guides and a lot of different energies for a long time to do YouTube, if it wasn't for Guardian, I wouldn't have done it. And so I want to say thank you to Guardian on behalf of everybody else too. We get a lot of people that come in that say they get a lot of help, and they wouldn't have if Guardian hadn't provided the space for me to be myself and to be able to talk about these things. I'm becoming very emotional because this is really a big deal for me. So I am deeply honored to share this conversation with Guardian today. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's awesome to be here. Like it's so insane to me that like just sharing my stuff had such an impact on other people. I still haven't fully grasped it, but it's a great thing to know. Also, it's like super fulfilling in a sense that I think like most of us through our like awakening journey will like go through this phase of like being super isolated and feeling alone. And like I found that the best remedy for it is like to talk about this stuff and just share it with other people. And we live in a world where like we can connect with people all across the world, and we don't have to be as lonely anymore. So
yeah, exactly. You don't have to be alone. That's really the theme of what we're doing right now, is this everyone's coming together, right? And so as we come together, what's been the common theme about a lot of us coming together lately? There's been healing and understanding of ascension symptoms. And that's another thing that Guardians really helped me with over the years too, is to talk to somebody else and say, whoa, this really weird thing's happened to me, and it's happening to you too. And Again, where are you calling in from, Guardian? Where on the planet?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm located in Transylvania, that's in Eastern Europe, and I'm Hungarian, so that is why I don't have a perfect English accent.
Oh, I love your accent. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like English is not my first language, but I'm also learning and adapting across the years. So I learned a lot by speaking on YouTube and like having conversations and sessions with other people.
Mhm.
It's great. I really like it, the English. I think it's like a very powerful language for doing magic stuff. I prefer it to my own language, so I think there's something very special in it, and it's like a very good reason why it's so like widespread across the world and like is used by so many people.
Interesting. Fascinating. And for Guardian to say that, I mean, I'm sure all you would probably relate. He's very well spoken, and to make such a judgment on yourself is kind of surprising because you do speak the language very well, as if you do it all the time.
Oh, thank you. Well, I kind of do the
Yeah.
past few months, but yeah,
You get some
practice makes
practice
it
with
perfect. Yeah.
YouTube. What there's I would like to also, just before I forget, the Guardian here has a very beautiful and profound connection with Thoth or Thoth, and there's been a new audio video, or what do you call those things?
It's an audiobook, but it has
Thank
a
you.
bit of visual side to it as well, since it's on YouTube. But it's just like a some kind of psychedelic backdrop if you want to watch something while you're listening to it.
Right.
Yeah, like it has been like published a month ago. It's like the last video in the uploaded section, and it's also at the front of my YouTube channel if you go there.
There you
It's
go.
basically a book. It's part of the book that I've published in 2021, The Teachings of Thoth the Atlantean for the Dawn of the Space Age. It has a long title. And basically, it was published in 2021, in June, I think.
That's
And late that year, like the inspiration came again to write again. And it was in a bit of a different tone, and it felt like it's the beginning of another book or something. So the information just stopped after like 5 chapters, and I was like, okay, like maybe it's just not time for that information to come through at this time. And I was sitting on it for like 2 years.
yeah.
And I had this realization, I think like 3 or 4 months ago, that wait a second, like that's not a new book, like that's like the final parts of the one that I already published. I
Hmm.
was like, hey, like why was I tricked into like thinking that this is going to be something else? And like the information came that when I received that information, like we were not on a timeline where this was something that could be published to the greater audience, or like for it to become like a public knowledge, basically.
Yeah.
But apparently we are in a timeline when this can be known by more people now. So we're making progress.
That's great news. When finally you're at a place where you can receive more knowledge or information than you could have previous. That's a good sign. So you've
Yeah.
channeled this book, is that correct?
I'm sorry. What
The
did I do?
book, you channeled it?
Yes, I think like some, as I received from some of the comments, it was kind of a bit of a confusion on some people's part of like, where did this book come from?
Mhm.
Like it's very much in tune with like previous like Hermetic teachings and like ancient mystery school teachings. And it's kind of in the spirit of that. And but basically it was channeled. It's
Yeah.
channeled information. I am not a scholar or archaeologist or whatever. Like I don't translate ancient
Right.
Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like that. Like this was received psychically during, I think it was 2020, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was in that year. Yeah, when all the lockdowns happened,
Yeah.
some major transformational stuff happened in my life too.
Yeah.
I like that. That's kind of how it came through.
This book that was channeled by Guardian, there's a also the throughout there are these things that were called spells, I think. The book of spells. And I had some amazing experiences as a result of some of these. So I'm just anyone who does it, it's free. This information's free. And um it one of the spells, I can't remember what it was called. Guardian will remember because I always forget
Yeah,
what.
like it's the key to freedom of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very, very profound experience that I had. So I spent uh up to that moment in my life believing very thoroughly that I was grotesquely ugly, to the point where I would dodge mirrors. Anytime anyone looked at me or smiled, I would always interpret it as they were feeling bad for me or like mocking me or something like that. I saw a very different reflection than was there. And I did this with Guardian. This was in tandem with a healing that I did with you at the same window of time. And I heard a series of locks unlocking, literally doors click, 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 click. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know it was for that. I was having some stuff. I moved into a place that was very dense and I was transmuting it. And I had just interacted with some tar stuff that was actually in Houston, where I'm at right now. That's why I'm here, is that
Oh,
experience. Yeah, we're healing that.
okay.
Yeah. Remember that big astral experience I had with the tar stuff? This is the nub. This is the other side of the umbilical cord. Yeah, that's why we're here. So um it affected me in such a profound way that after I had this unlocking experience, within a very short time, I was like a day or two, I started to see a completely different reflection, a completely different image looking back at me. I mean, sure, I could still see flaws and things that I would like to like improve about my physical form. However, um, what I who I saw looking back at me was nothing even close to who I have seen my entire life. And um, I know that was due to my own personal private world conditioning and stuff like that. I always believed myself to be the ugly girl in the group, wherever group I was in. And that was just who I was. And so when this occurred, that was only 3 years ago, 4 years ago almost. And my life is completely different, completely different. And so if you all get a chance, head over to Guardian of Orion's channel and go to his main page, and you'll find. Also, I'm going to put this information in the comments after we're done airing. You can put comments that aren't in the live section so people can see it easier, and I'll do it as soon as this is done, so you all can go to his channel and find this information, because it is so deeply, profoundly useful. So I just want to thank you for your service and that too. Like it's amazing. And you got the same voice that did the On's Thoth Emerald tablets that we listen
Yes.
to so much. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, like it was yeah, like I'm not a person that can be like easily excitable, so I'm to some people I may seem very stern and rigid maybe on the outside, but the fangirl really came out in me when he accepted the assignment. I was like, oh my God, like this is really happening.
That is so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, like by the way, like you can share the link to my site on the page where there are like all the links to different versions. Like you can read it free as a PDF. You can read it on a Kindle or Google Books. You can even read it in Persian, like someone translated it into Persian.
Wow.
I'm
That's
not sure how
legit.
accurate it is because I don't know Persian, but it's something.
That's awesome. So and this is taking the emerald tablets. We all knew the emerald tablets were missing a tablet or something, at least one or two. I can't remember how the story went anymore, because
I think it's two maybe, but I don't think it's that important.
right. And so when this came forward, we had been studying the emerald tablets quite thoroughly at that time, and so it was kind of fascinating because it did really fit right into exactly what I'd been getting, as if it was picking up where the emerald tablets have left off in some way, and that's how I interpreted the energy of it. And it was, so if you know the Emerald Tablets, kind of, or if you don't, perhaps go through the Emerald Tablets and then pick up here, or just go right to this content. It can be a read alone thing as well.
Yeah, like the first chapter is I wouldn't say like a recapitulation of the Emerald Tablets, but it's kind of like a quick recap of prior things that have happened before the book's time, I guess. So like there are like certain things that like repeat from the Emerald Tablets because it's kind of in the same spirit of that, and it's also like continuing the same rhythm and to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like we can find similar patterns maybe here and there.
That's really cool. Yeah, I found it so useful. And so I can say that for me personally, the Thoth energy is very difficult for me to be in presence of. And I'm curious because you just mentioned it. You're kind of not, you're really stable. Like I've actually called you like Spock-like energy before, playfully to your face.
I'm wearing blue right now. So
Hey, is that blue? It's not, you're not
yes.
wearing black. I thought it was black.
No, it's very dark blue.
Wow, you have color in your wardrobe. Good job.
Yeah, I wear it on special occasions. So
Well, thank you for wearing it today. And so how was it for me when the Thoth energy comes in, because there's no emotion. I feel like there's such a stable, I would rightfully probably put it's what it is the emotion's very stable. But the way it feels to me, it feels at first when when this energy comes in for me, it feels almost AI, because the lack of emotion is just
there
like,
isn't a lack of emotion, but
what?
well, there isn't a lack of emotion. It's just like, as you said, it is like super stable.
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm just curious. So how was it? So, because I'm me, everybody, I'm relatively stable, but I'm also very bubbly energy and up and jumping around and stuff. For someone who's a little bit more stable emotionally like you, what was it like to interact with the Thoth energy in this way?
Well, that's a complex part, but like we can go into it for a few minutes.
Mm.
Like the first time I actually interacted with that energy was during a past life regression. If anyone knows the QHHT technique, the quantum healing hypnosis therapy developed by Dolores Cannon, like I was very interested about her work. I have a ton of her books, and in 2013 I had the opportunity to go to a practitioner in Budapest, and all of a sudden, like, I went to a past life in ancient Egypt, which was like super, I wouldn't say like, yeah, it was super unexpected, but it made a lot of sense because in my very early years, like when I was like 4, 5, and 6 up until school, like I was like super obsessed with ancient Egypt. Like we didn't really have as much material available as we will have in our current age. Like we have the internet, but back then we like only had books and stuff like that. I was like very lucky because my mom's boss like went to Egypt, and like he got a lot of books and like albums with a lot of images in it and like hieroglyphs and statues and stuff like that. And for some reason they know that I was into that, and I got like this stack of books in English from Egypt, which was an amazing experience for me. Like I copied hieroglyphs, and I was like sticking together like copy paper to like make like scrolls, and I was like copying hieroglyphs with ink. And like, what 5-year-old does that?
Right?
Yeah, like I was like super into it. And like the very interesting thing that like came back to me regarding that in the past few months is like I felt this type of like devotion to the whole craft of like writing and like preserving what is there, or at least like what was there basically. And later on I kind of understood like why, because like that's kind of one of the main themes of ancient Egypt, of like preserving the knowledge that we have inherited from prior civilizations basically.
Right.
but yeah, like after that, like school came and I became disinterested about everything weird. So
Right.
I continued my mundane life, yeah, which was not a very pleasant experience. And when I had my regression to ancient Egypt, then yeah, I've seen the Great Pyramid having a large crystal on top, a large crystal. How do you call that thing? Casing?
The
Not sure.
keystone?
Yeah,
Oh,
like a keystone at the top, which was like had its own chamber kind of thing. And yeah, like I also see, and we were like communicating through that. So we were using the Great Pyramid and to amplify our communications with different star systems.
right.
That's what we were using it for back then. And when I was in that experience, I thought like, holy shit, I'm just like making all this stuff up. Like this doesn't make any sense. I'm just making this up. And when I like, yeah, I also, that's when I communicated first with Thoth. Like I had this experience with him many prior lives before. And it was some kind of, he was assisting in some kind of ritual, which assisted me in transcending that reality into like returning to the stars or something like that.
Mhm.
And later on, I understood while I was like researching Graham Hancock's stuff about ancient Egypt, like not the ancient Egypt that is like taught in school and by Egyptologists, but like going into the esoteric stuff because like they were really into mysticism, like they were not primitives who were using chisels and stones to like create these huge monuments. And yeah, like through that, I understood like what I experienced in my regression was this like some type of rite or something that only like I think the pharaohs or some higher ups basically on genetics wise like they had it in their I think in their mythology or something that whenever like a pharaoh dies like they return to the stars and like they go through this X, Y, and Z process to return their soul to their origin or something like that. And then I kind of realized that I guess like that's kind of what I've seen firsthand. I'm not sure because like it seemed very tangible and real, but I think it has a lot of symbology to what I've seen. So it didn't I shouldn't have like taken it one on one and interpreted it in a very logical way as we kind of do stuff. So
Right.
when I took it as being symbolic, it made a lot more sense too.
Right.
Yeah, like also the interesting stuff about the symbology of it is was like uh, I guess some of you are like familiar with like how ancient Egyptian temples are built. Like they have like different chambers and like stratas to them. And like they're built after the proportions of the human body, for example. So you would like see that you enter the main gate would be the feet, then you go upwards, and like the holiest of holies, the sacred place where only the high initiates can enter, would correspond with the third eye or the crown chakra. So and it was like very interesting that like I waited for Thoth at the gates of the temple, and he like took me through the entire temple, and like we exited at the very end. So we could also you can also take that as a type of initiation or activation to a certain extent.
Right. A chakral spiritual alignment as well as and clearing, as well as
Not sure, but yeah, like after that, some very weird stuff happens. I'm not sure.
that wasn't weird enough for y'all, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
after that, we went to some very strange places.
Where'd you go? Do you want to? I don't know if this is when you talk about this anymore. This is just a
Yeah.
fascinating
By the
subject.
way, like if anyone's interested, I think you can find this into one of my earlier videos. I did like a cut of all these experiences into one. It's like a 20-minute recollection of the
Cool.
experience. And basically like he opened some kind of door downwards. And I'm not sure like where that chamber where we went to was, like under the Sphinx or the Great Pyramid, I don't know. But it was somewhere in the Giza Plateau, like underground, buried somewhere in that region. And it was just like what you have in your background, like this type of Merkaba shaped interior chamber, which I guess like many of you know like how Merkaba looks. Like you can imagine yourself being inside of it, and like it didn't really have a floor or anything, but
Right.
yeah, like we were still there, and it was like made out of like a single crystal block. So it was like a seamless space created out of a very thick crystal or something. And like that's where the ritual took place, which like shooted us. I think there were like 3 or 4 more people who like came with me to the stars or something. But yeah, like we used that chamber to like shoot our consciousness up towards the stars or something similar. Then I found out when I like returned years later, like psychically, that I think it may be the spaceship that like the Emerald tablets talk about.
Mhm.
But basically, like many people talk about like the Sphinx having a hall of records or something underneath it. Like this could be it, I'm not sure. But if you like interact with the crystal, then you can find like a lot of stuff in it. Because if you know, like crystals store information, and
Yes.
you can, if you have the proper access to it, or like you can access it mentally, then you can like withdraw information from it.
Right.
And the interesting thing is like that crystal or that whole place like has its own consciousness too. So it's not just a block of crystal. Like I think it's something similar to like how we have in like sci-fi movies, that you have like a ship and it has like its own.
Personality.
I mean, some of them say like it's AI, but that's like something organic, like not an artificial construct or anything. So it has its own consciousness and awareness.
And personality, like it has its likes and dislikes and energy like
I'm not
this.
sure. I haven't interacted with it that deeply.
I've had that experience on occasion. And I actually think that I might have gone to the same place that you're talking about. Though when I went there, I'm not claiming I don't know. I do know that the person that I walked as was Horus at that time. And I was
Mhm.
much taller than the what would be called humans. And they were really excited and they kept running up and down the corridor and they were like getting underfoot. And it was frustrating because so I just got past them. And like the walls were all gold and they had recessed like things, like drawings and stuff in them. Then we went to the end. As we got to the end, the door started to go away. Like it's there used to have like there was a white glow of light, and then pretty soon there was no door. And you, Guardian, were sitting on a crystal slab, and I went and sat with you, and we went someplace. I told you this story when it happened, or when I recalled it. We went to a place where the light looked like maroon, their sunlight.
Mhm.
It was not maroon. What's the right word? Mauve. It's like a
Mhm.
mauve, like a reddish, purplish kind of color. Anyway, I just know it. I think I know what you're talking about when it
Yeah,
comes to
like
that
that's kind
crystal.
of the color of that crystal chamber.
Wow.
That reddish, I don't know, violetish, darker type of crystal thing. I don't know, like if we have that in nature. I'm not a crystal person.
Yeah.
Some people would recognize it. It could be something artificially created too. So like through alchemy, like combining different types of
Right.
crystals together on a molecular level to create something new. They
Right.
kind of did that stuff back then. We just like chisel our crystals.
Right. Like that's what the emerald tablets are, right? Their alchemy was administered in some way that made it so it was indestructible. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, like I think the molecules don't move. They're like fixed or something.
So they still vibrate? Like, isn't that's so weird to think because all matter vibrates in order for it to be tangible, right? So if it didn't vibrate,
I'm not
wow.
sure. Yeah, but like regarding the Emerald tablet stuff, like the more info that I got from it is that uh like I know like people interpret it as like being a physical type of thing that is like somewhere. I mean, I definitely believe that at certain parts in our history it was like create people created a physical representation of that information to have like a tangible source of knowledge. But I think like the real thing is like not physical, but it's like something etheric that can be accessed at specific times by specific people who are like able to access that specific vibrational level in
Yeah.
their own evolution, so they can like unlock the key, unlock the door to that source of knowledge, basically. And I
You're your
guess like
own
that's
key.
how, yes, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to burst out. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. And I kind of got the info that like that's like a type of source of knowledge that we have and have had for quite some time. Like throughout history, like sages and like people who were representing this type of teachings had periodically like access to it. So like the writings that we have received throughout history were like basically a channeled version or like portions of that information brought down in a written format, basically.
Right.
Just
Wow.
as what we are doing right now, basically.
Right. We're doing this. Yeah. And it's almost like picking up where we left off in some way. There's a lot of people who are commenting about resonating with Egypt specifically. And I've found that to be very true, that most people on this awakening journey at some point, not everybody, but you could say 80%, have roots somehow in a past life experience in this Egypt or ancient Greece. It's kind of an interesting thing to consider. I wonder why exactly that is.
The ancient Greece thingy. Okay. I'm not sure. Like I was kind of attracted to it also at a certain point, but I kind of found it boring after some time. But yeah, like basically, like Greece was like to them, like ancient Egypt was something very magical and like
Yeah.
of the other world. And I also know like many philosophers and like great people from ancient Greece also learned and like studied in ancient Egypt. So also like I think like Plato had to like prepare for like 20 years just that he would be like let into the temple.
Wow.
So yeah, like for them it was like a source of high knowledge and mysticism and all that. And like
Right.
some of that information was like converted and like translated to their own culture, basically.
Right.
Like many things that we know, I know, like which I don't really like in our modern Western culture, is that we like give too much credit to the Greeks. Of like, oh, like they're the first people who discovered this stuff in mathematics and philosophy and all that, and like
Right.
the Greeks just learned all that from Egypt and from the East. Like
Right.
nobody talks about that.
Yeah, it's fun to research some of these things. They can be very activating, and I exactly what you just said. I'm just going to echo it in a different way. Use your own discernment when you're researching and studying, because remember that what we're reading that was written by whoever was left behind, and usually that's the victor, right? And from what I recall, in this earliest time, you wouldn't even call them the victor. They just called themselves that because we realized that we weren't doing any good here. So we left for a minute. And those who were left behind were like, we won, and changed history's written format, a bit. And so there was no winning. It was just and we're here now again. We're doing this and I would say that the bulk of what our work has been to do with something that Guardian here has kind of been like, for me, really taught me. I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't with intention exactly. I mean, kind of, but it's called transmutation. I didn't know that back then, and then I met Guardian and I didn't talk to people about any of this stuff, guys. Like, this is just stuff that I just did, and it's like, this didn't feel right. Or, I would get guidance from my guides and stuff, but no one else was talking that I could hear until I met you. And this hermetic teaching was a springboard for our conversation into transmutation. And I can't remember the link in there, but maybe it was Hermes. Oh, and Hermes is a Greek god too.
Yeah, but he came from Thoth. It's a reinterpretation of the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah, you see that a lot. They're like, you look at the Egyptians and also biblical figures. You can find references of the same individual. So like Apollo is Ra, Artemis is Diane in the Bible. Like, you can follow, they're important enough. They're being resurfaced often. And right now in particular, many of us are finding, a lot of us are finding that this density feels like it's coming up especially the past couple of years, if you really want to be truthful. But this past month, a lot of people have been struggling and requiring. And I was just wondering, can we walk through some of this? What does transmutation mean and how do you do it? Like, a little bit, or is that jumping too far away from the topic we were just in?
Nope, not necessarily. Yeah, like but for like anyone who's like interested in transmutation, alchemy, or the Hermetic teachings, like you could start with the Kabbalion, like by the three initiates. It kind of appeared, I think, like 100 years ago or so, when all these ancient mystical teachings that we were talking about were like compiled in a nice little book that explains all these allegories and symbolisms very well.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I was kind of on the same path as you were just explaining, that like throughout my journey I did stuff intuitively, like I didn't know like what was it called or anything, but I felt like I hit like a specific, I know, like I plateaued, or just I hit a wall with what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I felt that, hey, like I know all this stuff on a certain level, but I feel like I'm blocked by this knowledge not being clear enough, like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like if you want me to continue, I need like a tangible something, like a system or something that explains all this,
Right.
because it was just like a jumbled mess in my head, basically. Like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, and I didn't understand, like, okay, like why? Like, how does this actually work in a
Right.
tangible and understandable way? And I think like next day, like the Kabbalion appeared in my life. And it was like, oh my God. So when I was like first listening to it, I think like I listened just to the first half of the whole book, and I was like blown away, like, oh my God, like this makes so much sense.
Wow.
And like I think the book multiple times like references that like this is not for everyone, and if you're reading this, maybe you had like many lifetimes before to prepare to receive this knowledge or something like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, like it was kind of strange to me that I never read or had contact with this type of information, but this book claims that this is super complicated and it's hard to understand, and I totally get it. So like, where is this coming from? And then I was like sharing it with other people, and my insane excitement, like, oh my God, like this book is amazing. Like everything is there in that book. You don't need anything else. Like it explains everything. And when I shared it with other people, they were like, what is the big fuss all about? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's all nonsense. And I was like, okay, like this is really not for everyone.
Yeah. That's funny. I can relate to that in some levels too. I think everyone can. That's in this awakening journey. It's just fascinating when your soul calls you to something and it comes to you, that in this way, we don't know how or why, we just know it, and you could be, I think the most examples of this is shown as children, because they're the most easy to prove, when you want to publicize something like this, that they don't have any access to, they don't have any logical access to this type of information.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they call it savant. However, this is just an innate knowledge, that knowledge that's brought here from someplace else. And we're coming to realize more and more, not only are we not using our brain as a storage system for information, and instead using our heart, that our brain's more of like a filtering system, is that most of us not unknowingly regularly connect with our personal Akashic, as well as the super center of the Akashic records, as a means of bringing forward information just on a day-to-day basis. Having said all of that, you come here already wired into your own Akashic, and your Akashic is your soul's journey. And so like the QHHT, your past life regressions and things like this, it's a way to access this stuff. And so those of us, pointing at you, Guardian, who can do this without even realizing why or how, this is often for many people, the moment that they realize there's something different about them. Like that's when you realize, oh, wait, there's something more here. Right. So I'm just curious, when that happened, this is just a really fun thing, because Guardian, this part of Guardian story, this whole thing we've been talking about has been really important to me for a long time, and it's 444. It's just been very helpful for me. and I've been able to relate to a lot of this stuff, and that in my personal experience, I found that I went through a period of depression right after. Like I really struggled because I think it's because I realized how many those around me that I did not relate to, and that there was many people that I, like you said, I wanted to shout from the rooftops, like, look. And then there
This
was
is
this
amazing.
judgment and ostracization almost as a result of it. And I'm just curious what your experience at that time looked like.
Yeah, like it's super, I wouldn't say like off-putting, but like it's not very pleasant when you have all these amazing experiences and you don't really have anyone to share it with. So yeah, but yeah, like what really helped me with all of that is like sharing my stuff on YouTube, basically. Like
Right.
I wouldn't dare to talk about the stuff with my family, but I just tell the rest of the world.
Right. Yeah.
And hoping that they won't know about it. So
Which is
yeah,
why we start with handles. You were Guardian of Orion.
yeah, exactly. Like that's why I haven't shown myself for I think like 1.5 years or so. So
Right. Yeah. And it's really so any of you who, are in this experience, that's something that you can do. And that is definitely the theme of the decade is speak your truth, be your true authentic self in whatever way possible. And commenting or this is how I met the people was on Guardian's channel. We'd go live and I'd jump on the comments and we talk and we share email addresses, and then you can delete it right after the person got it. And just that kind of, and before we knew it, we were doing Zoom meetings and having camaraderie. And now there's a Telegram group that has like 444 people on it. Wait, excuse me. 444. Yeah, I said it right. I was going to say 1,000 because 144,000. And I just wanted to be sure I didn't say it wrong. I didn't want to overpromise, but these types of communities, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. In fact, like right behind the curtain here, hiding because she wants to hear it. It's really cool. I'm going to reveal you, Viv. Viv. I called her Liv just now. So sorry, Viv. I do that with everybody's names. Is that people are coming here to this area to connect, that we met because of Guardian. You know what I mean? And so yeah, dude, like that happened because of you, and because of what you provided. And it's the ability to speak your truth. I turned into higher vibration so I could say what I needed to say without worrying about repercussions. Most of what I talk about, I had in the past been declared as obviously someone with the opinion expressed as you're crazy, or let's help you see logic. Let's help you, dear one, from your, and that doesn't help. What helps is to talk to people who know it, who get it, who also know exactly what you're talking about. While you were talking about Egypt, same. People are popping up. See, that was done and you spoke your truth. So speaking your truth and activating that throat chakra is a big deal. And then there's this activation that just happened. And I'm just going to leave it at this and then go back to Guardian, is that letting in the light of God through the chakra right at the back of your head. This is your neck. This is your head right there. And it moves through forward. I found right now, that's what it wants to do right now. This is like a thing. You see the white light moving through and it just goes. It does move and spread through your body while it's doing it. Something's being released this way. So in meditative state, this helped my throat chakra. So in a meditative state, allow that just visualization. You know how we bring the light in from God and up from Gaia and stuff. The same thing here. Just that chakra back there and let it go. This is unblocking, unclogging something. So there's that side note there. But how did you start to, so was it just YouTube? Or did you just jumped on YouTube and you start making videos, or did you start to, wow, you're so much more brave than me?
yeah, like I think it was in 20. Hey, when did the lockdown start? In 2020? 2020. Okay. So by that time, I was like receiving some very huge activations in the year prior too, but still was like sitting on everything. And at the beginning of like 2020, when I was like doing my meditations, I like always got this like strong impulse, like, you have to start your YouTube channel. You have to do it. I'm like, no, like I'm not doing that. So, but no, you really have to do it. I'm like, no. I think it took me like 3 months or so to actually start.
Yeah.
I'm not sure like what my first videos were, but I think like you can find the first few of channeling stuff. And yeah, like because I was like receiving I had a very strong connection with the higher realms even back then. And I was like, hey, like I'm sitting in all this great stuff and like I'm not sharing it with anyone. So
Yeah.
and like all these horrible things are happening across the world and I'm just sitting here and maybe I should do something. And I
Wow.
felt like, okay, like let's start somehow. I'm not sure. Has some wacky, weird stuff at the beginning. Also, my English was a bit different because I was very used to, I understood English very well. Like I communicated through writing and I also read a lot of stuff in English, but I didn't have experience speaking it. So
Right.
it was a completely different experience, even though I knew very clearly what I wanted to say.
Right.
So that took me like 2 years, I think, to like overcome that issue there.
We all have our hangups that we think is important, but it's not important to us because I've always loved your voice. And it's just, and it's so calming. Guardian does these meditations too. And
I like people fall asleep, so just by listening to it.
yeah, that's a common story. I get that too. It's kind of funny. I'm surprised. My voice is my voice. Like it drives me crazy when I have to hear my own voice. But apparently I'm so calming. Some people that like Jackie's in the audience right now. It's is that I'll send her things to her and she just it makes her fall asleep. You know, and like right on the um all of the stuff that Guardian's done over the years is all timeless, by the way. So I would really strongly suggest anyone who's interested in looking at some of this stuff, like he made I called it the trio. It's the light language of the green, the blue, and I think the violet. Is that what you did? Yeah, we had transmutation one, and then you had Archangel Michael and Archangel was it Raphael?
Raphael,
Mhm.
yes.
And that's in my channel. If you want to go to like the folders, there's one that's in there public where anyone can click it and watch all three of them. I watch them, I'll do it, I'll have it playing in the way in the order that it's in and just put it on cycle sometimes, and like it's very, very, very activating. And this is what I'm pointing out is this was done a while ago and it's still just as activating as it was the day that you had first published it. So I encourage you all to do that if you do go over to Guardian over Ryan's channel. There's one more thing. So, or one more thing, not one more thing, but when it comes to transmutation, and the practice of it, and this is what you're about to do, if someone had never done it with intention before, how would you advise that they go about that?
Well, basically, what is transmutation is like taking something that is what you don't prefer, for example, like an uncomfortable energy, but it can be anything. Something that you do not prefer, and basically through a higher force, transform it into something that you do prefer to have, or release it or heal it, basically. And like also what your Hermetic teachings are talking about is that you can overcome the effects of the lower realms by vibrating on the higher. So you call on the higher laws in order to overcome the laws of the lesser or lower planes. So if you're, for example, if you're encountering some nasty energies in your journey here, like you can call on the higher forces to like transform it and transmute it into something that is higher vibrational, or if that is not possible, to like remove it from your experience.
Right.
Yeah, like in a very rough, like very crude example will be like encountering some unpleasant beings, and like you can call on, for example, Archangel Michael to like take over the experience and like maybe help that specific being to heal or transmute their own stuck energies, Or if that being doesn't want that, then just basically we'll remove it from your experience, so it won't bother you anymore.
Right. That's awesome. That's very well said. The and the
Yeah, like
color of
the other
transmutation.
stuff is,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
like how can you do the other stuff is, yeah, like learn to work with the violet flame. Like that's the most basic stuff ever. But yeah, like basic but very powerful. Like that's a great place to start. Like look up the transmutation with violet flame, like how it works.
Yeah.
And like it's not something complicated. Just as like explained, it's you can take something that is not working for you, for example, like a sickness that can be like emotional, karmic, or physical, and you can use the violet flame to transmute it into something that is lighter and something that is healed, basically.
Yeah.
And you can like become very creative with it. Like just start small, and you can use it for many, many, many things.
And some pretty profound experiences can happen. Visually, when I first did this, trying to muster this flame, I kept questioning if I was doing it right, because at first it didn't want to be on my body. And it turned out that the energy around me needed to be transmuted before I could address my own experience, and so the other thing too to say is that when I had first been working, Guardian's the one that really guided me through this, and there's a whole bunch of different violet flame meditations in his videos that he's provided over the years. I think one or two of them I actually was live with you when we did the meditation. I was just joining you while you were doing it. And I wanted I wanted it to always be violet. And I thought I was doing it wrong because it wanted to change color. Like there's times where I'll start with a violet flame and it'll be like every color. It'll be a rainbow, or it's white, or whatever. And so this is useful to know, is that whatever color is supposed to be, it will be, and so and this flame starts with your soul spark center, this space here, and then can come out further. And at the beginning, the flame was very, very faint. Guardian has a really good way of describing this. Would you like to pick up from here?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, like the best way to like activate it is like calling it through your heart, and like instead of like feeling or visualizing it that it's something like from outside there and it's like coming in to help you, like it's make it that it comes from inside of your heart. So this is like a force that is inside of you as well. You just like have to like call it forth and like work with it. And like the more you work with it, the more stronger it will become. Like also in the beginning, just as Pamela said, like it didn't really work. Like I know like the first day when I tried to meditate with it, it just appeared like a very faint flame here and there on my body, just like very similar to when you like spray, I know, like alcohol on your hand and you like light it on fire.
Because everybody does
Like
that.
it's just like shimmering here and there and just like goes away, like poof. Like that's kind of how it was in the beginning. And like the second day it became stronger, then the third day like it doubled. And after like a week or so, it became this like very intense experience for me, because it was like not just like around me, but it was like boiling inside my body as well.
Yeah.
And it was a super transformative experience, especially if you have like a lot of blockages. Like it can like also physically affect your body too, like having twitches or like this it's almost like electricity like running through your spine or something similar. Because
Right.
like if you have a lot of stuck energy inside your body, then that will like push it out. That's like it's like a huge catalyst in your growth. So like everything that is like hindering you from that, from your path basically, then it will work with that. So it makes you lighter and more healed basically.
Right. There's my light's acting crazy. Look at my face.
Yeah, like you're becoming more violet.
I am. The I By the way, I also have lit my sleeve on fire. I was joking when I was like, everybody does that. I think that a lot of us have done that. With um when did you start to notice, or what does it do to transmute? Like how is this, like I guess what I'm asking is, okay, a lot of people have gone through this period, the past couple of days, especially, where the things that are coming up for them, they feel like it's coming in. And a lot of us don't realize it when what's happening, that what needs to be healed and resolved is coming up right now, right? Because it can be. And I find that the use of the violet flame and the transmutation is like my go-to for that kind of thing. And I guess what my question is, what does it feel like in contrast to after, like, once you've done this, how does it benefit you? I guess that's a better way of saying it.
Okay. Well, like we are going through a lot of stuff always, and it like can come in periods basically when like this transformational things like intensify.
Yeah.
And then it's like after we have, I know, like reached a certain level or like resolved that thing, it like goes into like a phase when we have time to rest, maybe like an in-between phase. But yeah, like when things are becoming more intense, then you can like ease the whole process by working with the violet flame or other transmutational stuff. Like you can work with Mother Earth, like grounding your own energies, and basically like we're constantly transforming, and like it can be difficult, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Like you can make the process easier for yourself by actually like maneuvering with your own energies, of like the more balanced you are and like the more you take care of yourself, the easier that changing phases will become basically.
Right.
And it's, yeah, like what the Hermetic teachings say, like if you want to overcome the effects of the lower planes, like you have to raise your vibration and like vibrate above it basically. Like it doesn't mean that you will not, I don't know, like perceive it or like to a certain extent experience it, because like you have to learn that specific stuff, or you have to like release that, I know, like generational trauma that you've been carrying for God knows how long. But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that difficult basically.
Yeah. It can be really relaxing and enjoyable. And I find it, at first it was tiring. At the end, I felt tired. But that was only because it was time for my body to rest so I could get the downloads that needed to happen. Now I find that it's very recharging. Like I'll do this and then I'm like, it could be 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm well past bedtime, like, I mean, awake late, and I'll do that. And I'm like, all right, let's go do something. Now I'm awake. Like it's better than coffee. Right. And
Yeah.
I could say that, when we do this, this in itself is alchemizing the energy. That's what you're doing. Is that correct? Am I misstating?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
So
like
you're
also
doing your
the
own alchemy.
tiredness stuff is because like especially in the beginning, as you said, that like we have a lot of built up stuff inside ourselves, like not just physically but emotionally, energetically too. And like the violet flame is like going in deep and like bringing stuff up and like transforming it, and like that takes a lot of energy too, and it can be draining. Also it can be like emotionally exhausting too.
Yeah.
Like if like emotions come up and you like need to cry and let all the things come up, like that's also an important part of the process. And yeah, like in the first few maybe days or weeks, it can be just like very tiring experience because you're working through a lot of stuff.
Right.
But after you have like worked through that dense part, then as Pamela said, it can be like this chill experience. Oh, I'm just recharging, or I just have a few hiccups here and there, and I just have to transmute those. It's not a biggie. And even your like body will react differently. Like it won't be this I don't know, like it's almost like your electricity is running through your body. Like that's the best analogy I can find.
Yeah.
Like when it's like pushing out like very stuck energies in your system, it can be very intense sometimes, or not. Like for some people it's gentle, but I'm like a very radical person and I want to move through my healing process as quickly as possible. So
You're
I didn't
diligent.
hold back at all.
Yeah, you would be like a Hermione energy. Like you would be the person who would like, well, I mean, not the female part, but the fact that she is an energy that I use an example for, of just like real studious, always having the extra credit. Do you have any more things I can do to get more than 100% on my grade, like that's Guardian. Like he's not a slouch. He does all of, he's like, I got stuff to do, and he's done 3 days, and I'm like 2 months later, and I'm like, I'm done now.
Yeah, like probably I would be like, I know, like people just discovering this stuff, and at the time that they like start to manage it, I'm like, okay, like I'm done. I'm moving to the next phase.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll check back in with Guardian. I'm like, you did what, dude? I just opened the book, but not officially, not physically. But yeah, it's just like you just started. It's and there's all different ways in between too. And no one has to be in a rush. It's that you follow your own discernment, when it's what to do with whatever comes through for you, and like, Vanita's here and she says, I love working with Saint Germain and the Violet Flame. There's so much that comes through with, I've had experiences where I've made the flame be so large that it took up the whole room. And I've had beings come into the flame with me. And so, and it's not scary. It was really beautiful. It's just that if Guardian hadn't told me that it happened to him, I probably would have been shocked. I was still shocked, but just not as much. So what you want to tell your story about what happened there? If you want.
I still haven't really followed up on that one. But yeah, like I think like after a few months, I was like experimenting with like extending the Violet Flame quite far. I don't know, like maybe like kilometers or so. And yeah, like I was just in this super awesome state of like, oh, I'm the Violet Flame, and I'm just like emanating it like all across, I don't know, like how far. And I was doing it for like 20-30 minutes, and all of a sudden like the flames just like part in front of me, and they're just white robed, white beard guy in front of me, and I'm like, whoa, like I didn't sign up for this. Like,
Some white
this?
guy.
Yeah, this radiating white bearded guy in front of me. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to the kitchen and like make tea or something. Then I like later found an image just by like casually browsing through some site. On the side of that bearded guy with the violet flame, and the image said it was like Melchizedek, but I haven't really followed up on that much.
That's a really cool energy to have come forward. And before, because you didn't know what was going on, not all of us know who's coming forward, because I can say from my experience, when it comes to energies, you can call it spirit. I say spirit as like a broad term of like, that's everybody, spirit works, or whatever word you want, is that most of the names and titles we've given these individuals isn't what they call themselves. So they don't really care what you call them. And when someone doesn't care, I don't. That's just how it works for me. So therefore, many of the energies that I was interacting with, I would eventually assign them nicknames. Like Archangel Michael was Bob for decades. That's my favorite story, because I had no idea. Everybody's talking about this person, Archangel Michael, and is that the first interaction or the first moment that you saw him, you didn't know who he was. You had thought he was somebody else. And this happens to everybody, is why I wanted to bring that up. Is that okay that I pulled that forward for this?
Yeah, sure.
So you thought perhaps you might have been Saint Germain or somebody that you didn't know who it was. And then you were guessing and didn't have any idea for real. And then one day when you were meant to know who it was, it just popped out in random searches that you weren't really pursuing.
Yeah, I wasn't searching for it or anything.
Right.
Probably still have to follow up on that lead, so we will see.
Right, exactly. And Vanita has a really good point. She's like, plus they appear so that they don't scare us. I've had that experience a lot, where energies are coming forward and somebody else is seeing it as a biblical figure, but I'm seeing them as a being, and it's like, that's not, they're both correct. It's just simply their beautiful energy. And that beautiful energy is most easily processed by some as a religious icon that they can relate to, and it is that energy that story is being told about. So it's not false. It's not falsifying any information. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how that works. Have you had any other experiences like that where you've had beings come forward that you didn't know who they were, or
I'm not sure. But yeah, like after in the yeah, like in the beginning when you're in the spiritual awakening journey stuff, then we have this need of like naming everything and like giving things a label and like pushing them into a box. Like I think I kind of also struggled with that for like 5 years or so. But after that, I like kind of managed to like let go of my expectations of like I need to know like where is this from or what is it called or where is this coming from and what is it exactly, how does it work?
right?
And yeah, like that helped a lot. So that like it was also like a huge catalyst in the whole journey of like letting go of this busy thinking mind who is like wants to like rationalize everything, and you just like try to experience and like see stuff for what it is without this need for like, oh, I need to know this and that. And instead of like your mind racing on those like detailed those surface details, which is not that important really,
Yeah.
just like focusing on like what is happening and like why is this important, like why am I seeing this right now, like
Mhm.
what are you trying to tell me? And yeah, like after a time when you do that, I think like you would just kind of know like, hey, like I'm communicating with this energy now, or
Yeah.
sometimes maybe it's something that we have zero clue what it is.
Right.
We have like no reference point for that basically.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like that a lot of the time we don't even know it though, that these energies are coming through um as a continued partnership, relationship, communication space from
Yes.
a time you may not recall. And so the familiarity that they come through with, it's like, for instance, if I start when I start a conversation with Guardian, he doesn't introduce himself. And I don't call him, his name very often, either. It's just we are talking to each other, in conversation. And so it's not as important as we put importance on these things, and the Fenya's here. I just want to point this out because I'm going to forget to read
Hello.
it. Hi, Fenya. Good to see you. She says, Pamela and Guardian's Violet Flame meditation you did together was wonderful. Can you maybe do a new meditation again together sometime? And I
We'll
think that would
see.
be lovely. We'll see what happens. I can say that my life is now moving in a stasis state, starting like right now, moving into the end of the festival. So that's the 11th. So for the next couple of the next week, I'm going to be here, and then I'm going over to live in Arkansas next to the Crystal Mountain. And so from there, we could connect and do stuff. I think that would be lovely to
Okay.
Guardian and I have had correspondence about possibly doing something together in a more regular way. Again,
Yes.
yeah, I would love that. Um, I know that it's 1 o'clock in the morning, like 1:11 in the morning for you right now. Is it possible to stay longer, or do you want to get closed
Yeah,
up?
like we can stay longer. I feel very good.
Okay, cool.
I took some ginseng, so
Good
I'm
job.
on, I'm on steroids right now. I hope I can go to sleep afterwards because tomorrow is Monday. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, like, but how long can we stay for? Like maybe half an hour or up until 2 a.m. or so?
Typically this show goes for an hour and a half, but we can go as long as you want. We can literally go as long as there's nothing else happening on this show today.
Yeah,
So
as long as Todd kicks us out of his Zoom account or something.
I don't think he will do that anytime soon.
Okay.
Jackie says, "You rebel ginseng." Ginseng's
Yeah.
good stuff, dude.
Yeah, like in Asia, they use it for a lot of stuff.
Right. There's something that's been activating and coming forward about some this ancient Hungarian mysticism. And I find that really fascinating because I made me think of you, obviously, right away. You're the only Hungarian I know. But like for you to have this ancestral line, I was just wondering if but you've obviously not heard anything about it. So have you been getting anything?
Like I'm not sure, like, so have there been any revelations regarding our ancestry?
So Hungarian energies have been coming forward, and it's like it echoes like that for me mean that it's happening on our distant land. It's like, and it looked like what would be and the motherland, the way that they're walking and stuff. And so I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and it's okay, but I was just wondering if you're noticing this energy because you're still pretty closely located. You're in Romania.
Yeah. I don't know anything about like happening publicly, but like, do you want me to like share some stuff about
Sure.
our
Yes,
potential ancestry stuff and
please.
connections? Oh, okay. So yeah, in the beginning, so that basically like let's go into the history stuff. Like we don't know anything about our ancestors because like we migrated here and arrived in here in Transylvania for the first time, like more than 1,000 years ago.
Wow.
And that's when we started to like establish different tribes and like create a kingdom actually. And I think it was we had the 1,000 year celebration like 10 years ago, I'm not sure, when
Wow.
we actually became the Hungarian kingdom basically. But in order to become a kingdom here in Europe, we have to like leave behind all our pagan beliefs, and it was like burned out with fire and sword out of everyone. So, and with purpose, like everything was like destroyed about our past, basically. So
Right.
we don't really, I mean, people have like theories and like we found remnants here and there, but it's just theories basically. But the interesting thing is about like our mystics that is like very interesting. So if I would have lived like maybe more than 1,000 years ago, then probably I would be like the mystic of the tribe or something.
Right.
And like people call them like shamans, but they are not. So, but they're like categorizing them as such because like that's like, like diminishing is a bad word, but basically by that they're like also trying to like distort our past and to like make it something that it's not.
Right.
Because like also like shamanism is a like much more broader something. Like across the world you can find shamans, but you can't we also have a different name for it, which is non-translatable. But basically what is different in our mystics or shamans is that like we don't use psychedelics, or we like don't need anything external to like go into this altered state of consciousness in which we can like work and like do these etheric stuff or like grid work or healing or these stuff, things that we do usually right now. And yeah, like in the beginning phases of my awakening journey, I was like exposed to this information. And basically my wife knew this far before I did.
Wow.
And she said like, that is one of the reasons why she hesitated to be with me, because like she knew that I was this thing, and I was like, it's maybe not a good idea to have like a boyfriend like that or something. I was like how did she know those stuff? And it was like, I know like in the beginning she was like she didn't say anything clearly. She was just like hinting at like, hey, like aren't you like interested in like looking up this information, or like have you ever considered that you have like shamanic gifts or something? I was like, no, like I don't care about this stuff. And like she like presented me with like different like researchers and like books where they're like describing my abilities and the stuff that I do, even down to the food that I ate. And I was like, what the fuck is
Yeah.
this? Like, even to my preferences to food, and like, ooh, okay, like what is happening?
Right.
Yeah, like but even though like they try to like destroy our past and like erase everything of it, like many like legends and folk tales have survived across history, because like even though like they try to like erase us from history, like people like that are like always like born again. So
Yeah.
it's something uncontrollable by the authorities. So
Right.
like those people will be born because like they have a job to do on this world.
Right.
And it's and like yeah, like the other key feature in us is that like we don't have teachers, or like it's not something that you can learn.
Right.
Like I'm not an expert in shamanism, so maybe I'm going to say something stupid, but I think like you can learn, as far as I understand, like you can learn to be a shaman or something. Of course, you have to have the gift and to it
Yes.
that you average Joe on the street would probably not make it.
Right.
But yeah, like you can learn that path to a certain extent, but theoretically, like at least according to what we know about them, those mystics, is like it's something that you cannot learn. Like you have to be born with that knowledge in order to walk that path, basically.
Right.
And yeah, like there have been many different folk tales and stuff about us, and they always been tall guys with deep voice. I'm also very tall and I have a deep voice.
And you're almost 7 foot, aren't you?
Yeah,
You're
and
like
I'm
really
like,
tall.
oh my God, like how did the people know about this stuff? Like, yeah, but the other crazy stuff that happened, I think it was 2013 maybe, is that thank God we have like researchers that are like actually into trying to like uncover truth and like digging through all the bullshit history like trying to get to the truth basically. And I watched quite a few presentations with these people, and they were like researching, gathering folk tales and like recollections of maybe people had experience with these people or stuff. And they actually found I'm not sure how old he was, but he lived relatively, I think like maybe 100 kilometers where I live now, like
Whoa.
an elderly gentleman
Whoa.
uh, who was considered to be one of these mystics. But yeah, like he was Christian because like people here are very religious and superstitious. But yeah, like he had these abilities and he was like regarded as a healer basically in the community and the region.
Wow.
And he was like talking, it was like an awesome thing because like they actually did a kind of interview with him, but this was like an old footage, I think from the 70s or 60s.
Mm.
And back then, like we had communism here, and like religion and God was not a preferred thing around here. And I think I talked about this with you in the past that we had, oh, how do you call that festivity after, I think like 40 days after Easter, like Pentecost or
Passover?
I now when
Wait,
they received the Holy Spirit.
I
What
know what
is
you're
that?
talking about. I know. Yeah. It's yeah. Somebody else is going to write it in the YouTube
Okay.
comments for me, I'm sure. Yeah. So,
Okay, so basically that uh it's not a festivity. What do you call that? So that occasion, yeah, like that's a very celebrated thing around here. And we have a sacred place. I think it's like 1 hour's drive from where I live right now. We have many sacred places connected to Mother Mary in this region and in
right.
the whole of Transylvania. Like she is our guardian, basically, like of this region. She's the guardian of this region. And yeah, we have this festivity at that time each year. And like this sacred gathering place for it was in this region, which I talked about. Yeah, like people can research it, although I'm not going to say the name, the Hungarian name right now, because probably people will not be able to write that down. But yeah, like it had, I think it had like a 450-year-old tradition of like creating this sacred gathering at that spot of like people coming together and praying together to Mother Mary. And of course, this was not a favorable thing in the communist era. So
Right.
to pray to Mother Mary. So they did everything to like prevent that. Then they went to the extent of like having military outside there, so anyone who would come to the site would be shot on sight. So
To keep them from Mother Mary.
yes,
Wow.
okay. And this elderly gentleman talked about that when he was young. I'm not sure how young he was. Like he received a call that you are going to go to that place on that day. And like, holy shit, are you mad? Like, you're going to kill me.
Oh my gosh.
Like, okay, so he had to go to that place on that date, and like he was like describing, I guess like it was in the ether or something with Archangel Michael and Mother Mary, of like I'm not sure like what it was exactly, but basically like he saw that the armies fell or something like that. And like for some reason, like in the coming days, like the Communist Party decided that it would be beneficial if they would leave people to go to that place and have this sacred gathering, because like it would be good with Western cultures, like to show some positivity towards other countries or something.
Mhm.
So they started to like let that festivity happen, and it started like grow and grow. And it even in past years, I think we had like hundreds of thousands of people coming there, like from all across the world.
Wow.
Like 3 years ago, we had even the Pope visit the site.
Oh yeah, I remember you
Yeah,
telling
like which
me
was the
that.
first time in history that the Pope came to Transylvania. So
The first time ever in history was last year
yeah,
that the Pope came to
not last year. I think it was 3 years ago. I'm not sure when it
very
was.
recently. That's very significant.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, when I was like listening to that, that interview with that elderly gentleman,
Hmm.
I was like receiving this huge rush of energy, like, oh my God, like I have to go there.
Yeah.
It was like an insane experience of, I think I was like crying or something, like, holy shit, I'm called to go there too.
Wow.
Because like we had some very serious issues with the weather and that location at that specific time. Like
Yeah.
even though like they had to like let people go there, I think like there was a lot of interference in the whole thing, because like the whole event like became like synonymous with horrible weather conditions.
Really.
Of like always having storms. Like I heard stories that there were like people in 1 year they had, how do you call that when ice is raining? It's called
Freezing rain is what we.
hailstorm or whatever.
Oh hell yeah, hail. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Or
was became like
for.
hellstorm because they were like raining, like these big blocks of ice were raining
Oh,
in the sky.
whoa.
And like I don't know like how many people were like taken to the hospital because like they were injured very badly. A lot of people got injured that day. And I didn't know about that. I just only thing that I knew that I have to go there on that date.
Right.
And yeah, like I did some stuff there too, like energy wise as well. And the interesting stuff is that since we went there that day, we had awesome weather. So for the first time in history.
Wow.
Yeah, like the other thing that I wanted to share regarding it, I think I haven't told anyone yet, but that year I did like an activation with the Eternal Fire. Like anyone who is like willing to receive it would receive it in 2013, and there were like only, I don't know, like maybe dozens of people who were like activated by it. And last year when we went, I think it was the first year since the lockdown, since we actually had the real gathering.
Mm.
And that's the first time I went there since the lockdowns. And I did the same activation with the Eternal Fire for people. And the awesome thing is that more than half of the entire audience had already had the activation with the Eternal Fire. So, and
Wow.
we had like hundreds of thousands of people gathered there. So that's a lot of people. That's a huge difference compared to 2013,
Right.
just in 10 years.
What a progress story
Yeah, and I
too.
was like, holy shit, like, wow. I
Whoa.
wasn't, I didn't even believe it when I was seeing it, like, wow, like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. And then did they know you as well? Like, did you guys recognize the Eternal Flame activation people? Did you all recognize each other?
I don't think so. Like, I move in the shadows and I
You're
don't
pretty,
like to be seen.
you're kind of a ninja. I noticed that about you over
Yeah.
the whole time. You just kind of like, here I am. Nope.
Yeah. And I shapeshift too on the astral, so you
Yeah.
can't find me or recognize me.
You always look different when you come to me. Every time you don't look like you, though each time I could tell who you are, but it takes a minute because you always look very different. Sometimes you look incredibly ET, like nothing. I mean, there's humanoid like body, but very, very different each time. And usually Guardian brings me these um pieces of shield. You can call it armor that's gold. It's like thick, but it's like not heavy at all. And you don't have to connect it to, it just goes. The last one Guardian gave me was my throat chakra. And that was just about the time, if not exactly the time, a week after I started my YouTube channel. Was when and I don't think you remember these, because I remember telling you about them and you're like, that was really cool. But like,
Yeah, I
you've,
remember the armor stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you don't remember this?
Yeah, I remember the golden armor thing.
Yeah. And many people have people like this in their experience where they come through for them. They come through and they provide them with stuff. They're different characters, they're different people, they're different figures. But the same is true for what we talked about these other religious figures, is that whatever is the most comfortable for you will come forward. So
Yeah,
it's,
like, even if you see me, it's not, doesn't mean that it's me.
yeah,
Maybe it's a higher aspect of me, and that higher aspect choose to represent itself through that form because you know what that is.
right. Yeah. I've had that experience too, where it's very obvious that my presence helps somebody, but I don't have any recollection of it. You know, I've had people say that to me where I've been in a vision with them or astral, and sometimes I recall, but most of the time it's like, that's really cool that happened, and that the energy of Pamela or higher vibrations or whatever was able to assist for them to be able to receive the message that they needed.
Yeah, or get some activations.
Yeah.
Like that's what we receive also with just like maybe listening to each other, or just you see that guy or that specific person on a video and you're like, wow, like
Yeah.
I get it. Or like you receive this huge aha moment. Like we have I know, like we came in to like activate each other as well. So
Right. Yeah, definitely. And we always find each other. You don't have to look very hard. Like Guardian came to me in 2013 the first time, and I remembered him as a teenager. When I
yeah, I
yeah,
was 21 or something.
you weren't that young in my, but the memory of you, of who it was that I watched this video with, I wouldn't have described you the way that you actually were. When I found that video, I was taken aback. I was like, this is the video, but I remembered you as a much younger person than you were in those videos. The point I'm bringing up is that, you know, whoever and whatever is supposed to come forward comes when it's supposed to, you know. And so you going there when you did, that's an amazing story, Guardian. And that's only the beginning of the story. You can tell too, is that there's more happening from it as a result of what occurred. And this, I haven't talked to anybody about this Hungarian stuff. It just started coming through like the past 3 days for me. And it's like, they're dressed in like what would look like, you call it barbaric, I suppose. I mean, just not real, you know, there's not a pants and a shirt, you know, it's a peasant dress wear, you know, but they're scattered and they're all running through a grassy place that looks damp, like Ireland. I would translate it as Ireland because I understand that landmass area, but I'm sure there's places in Hungary that are similar to this, like a war field perhaps, or some place. They're all running and they're not standing next to each other. They're all scattered and they're all kind of running, not running away or anything. They're just like, yay. It's like they're coming back from someplace, like being hidden. And like if someone opened up the prisons for a war, what do they call it? Prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how it feels. So it's just really cool to hear that there's really, in a physical way, things actually occurring in this way where liberation's being had, and this hidden stuff, like Vanita said too, you know, thank goodness for oral tradition, spoken tradition, the way we share. Otherwise, this culture, this truth of the Hungarian people could have well been lost in many ways, more than it was, I suppose.
Yeah, like also for in the Habsburg, I'm not sure how you call that in English, but during imperial times in the Habsburg dynasty, like children who had like extra, I don't know, like a finger or something, like they had to be killed on sight. And like that's also the other thing about these mystics, that they always had something extra, like an extra toe or tooth, or maybe another they had like 6 fingers or something. And, like they had it in law that like any children that is born like that had to be killed on sight. Like they didn't like
Oh,
competition, I guess.
right. That's fascinating. Do you have anything extra?
I'm not sure. I guess my teeth have like 5 roots, so maybe that.
Wow. Well, you got an extra foot of height. There's that.
Yeah.
There's that's fascinating. It's the same story that we hear from, or a similar story, but I would say it was a much more ancient story than the one I'm going to compare it to, is the Native American, Indigenous, First Nations people kind of story of like the reason that there was such a massacre is they were actually trying to get to the what you would call mystics, the shaman, and in particular the female, the elders of the female tents. And so the warriors and even some of the children would stand between these invading Europeans and the grandmothers. And so that's why the slaughter was so immense, is they were trying to get to these sacred keepers, is what it really comes down to, you know. And so we hear witch trials and we hear things like that, but that's just one example. It's throughout all culture, and now's the time that we're all incarnated here again to bring this information back, you know. And it's never been gone. And also there's always been somebody incarnated here to anchor it. Always been given this message, is that there's always been somebody living.
But we have more and more people who are able to access it and like anchor it even more.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And the more that we ground it, the more accessible it is to ourselves as well as everyone else too.
Yeah, like that's kind of the point, that it becomes accessible for more people, like for a larger audience, because like so far it's been like generally for few selected people. I don't know, like because it was like such a niche type of information, or like so hard to understand or access, that like very few people were able to actually do it or like understand it. But
Right.
now like we're going in an age where like these types of things will become like common knowledge. So it's not like a hidden stuff or just mystical unknown thingy, but like actually integrated information that we are able to use in a practical way in our lives too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other way that it was translated, it's just because it's, you know, there's nothing, everything is exactly in the right timing that it's supposed to be. Is that the example I'm given a lot, is a lot of this knowledge was put on a high enough shelf that we had to be tall enough to reach it first.
So the kids won't reach it.
Right. You know, and so for the longest time we had been in adolescence, or we were infantile. We were not able to emotionally, in a mature way, handle a lot of the handle a lot of the things that are coming through for us at this very moment, that's been coming through for some time, I would say. And this activation brings about clarity and understanding. And I'm finding that as this happens, more and more of my emotion base mellows out more like a Spock-like energy than it was before, you know. And so that's fascinating to look at what happens.
Yes.
I don't know, it's kind of a side note. So what is there any other is there, do we miss anything in regard to assisting people in this manner, for this topic?
I'm not sure. Yeah, like transmutation is a really good one, and just like I know, like being patient of like with the whole process. I know, like I guess many people, oh, my candle just went out. Okay. I'm going to have some smoke here very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think like many people in the beginning are like super impatient of like hey, I want to know all this stuff and like have all these gifts and things like that. But like try not to have that as a focus, but rather like just work on yourself to be clear and healed as possible.
Mhm.
And like all the so-called goodies would just like come as a side effect of you making progress in your own life, basically. Will just like gradually unfold, and you will recognize and know more and more interesting stuff about yourself, like history, like activate some new interesting gifts inside yourself. It's just all part of the process.
Yeah, I could say that's and the integration of the shadow concept of that happens during these types of revelation moments where we realize that because I had spent so much of my life pushing away anything that felt unpleasant, and I was ignoring it, hiding it, and burying it, kind of stuff, not even knowing I was doing it. The more that I've leaned into it, and then therefore healed and resolved these issues, I have found that it immediately becomes a euphoric experience once I've begun to integrate this, and then as we do that, then we can see that this whole time has just been about healing and transmuting it, and just instead of going, no, 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 I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, like pushing it away, is because we're still, it's like the story of trying to know what tea tastes like, but not dumping the coffee out of your cup and just dumping tea in there. It's not, you're never going to know what it's going to take, what it tastes like until you dump out first. You empty your vessel, and how do you empty your vessel? By taking it all in, because it's already in, but it looks like taking it in from a logical perspective and allowing it to balance itself, and then do what it needs to do. And most of the time we find that what we're transmuting is mostly what's being done is integration while transmutation is occurring, and so you can have that higher knowledge at the end of the story.
Yeah, but like for integration to take place, like first we have to like transmute those dark aspects,
Yes.
like heal it, so it can like integrate in a proper way rather to be like a distracting or disharmonizing factor in our lives. So
Kuldeep has the same story. She said she had 6 fingers. She's proper. Maybe when she was in India, she says they cut it off at birth.
oh.
Yeah. So same thing. Like that's in India. I don't know what the culture is like that but I know that it's not very. It's pretty repressive for the female, at the very least.
I don't know. I'm not an expert in Indian
It
culture.
was more of a statement and just kind of show you, because I didn't feel like I said it right, but it's close. But yeah, it's a thing, and there's a mark or a thing of some kind of blemish that's often been the same thing, and I could say that most of the people that I interact with at some point will bring forward they have some type of fascinating or bizarre or perfectly aligned like mark. Like Guardian has this one. This mark told me who he was, because this is the vision I kept getting. You actually have a medallion kind of thing there when you come forward. There's something really important about that spot for you. And like, there's a mark there. And,
I have a birthmark there. I was born with it.
right. And I have a mark that appeared on my leg after when I was 11. And that mark has turned into something really important too. What I'm saying is that doesn't always need to be there. However, it's interesting how consistent and common this is. And you see this through, you can't quash it though. The fact that people go through and try to delete us, we're here and we're here to reawaken the world. And I would say that those who are going to wake up are probably awake now to some degree.
Yeah, like probably they were like late bloomers too.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Probably will be a bit more difficult, but yeah.
It's going to be amazing to see. And very soon when we go to this place, the part of that has to do with the story is that when we go to the Crystal Mountain, we're going to activate ourselves, and then it's going to help. It's going to cause a wave through the planet. There was I brought that up because I keep wanting to ask the story, and I'm not sure if I'm just going to you had a story that you told me that goes with what we're doing, and you had activated a mountain with your wife. Is that okay if I bring this up, or is this too?
Oh yeah. Like we have many weird places here in Transylvania, which I found out later. I didn't know that I was surrounded by weird stuff here. Like we have again like folklores and like legends of like dragons living under the mountain.
Cool.
Like weird paranormal stuff happening in certain mountains or caves or forests. And yeah, I'm not sure when it was, like, I think it was in 24, no, it was in 15. Yeah. So yeah, I was like reading all this interesting stuff about these supposed locations, like underneath the mountain, and some people like claiming to be some bases or something. And I was like not intentionally going there, but I kind of like developed this I don't know, like this sense of like when I read about something, then I kind of like visualize it or like go there mentally for some reason.
Mhm.
And I was just unintentionally like going there and probing the location. And while I was reading about and just like poking around underneath the mountain, like all of a sudden, just like the whole broadcast was just like shut. All the visuals were like cut all of a sudden, and I just like seen these snake eyes in front of myself for like 2 seconds. And I was like, okay, like I shouldn't have gone there probably. And yeah, like
Right.
after that, some poking around during the nights happened, of like having some unpleasant visitors. Like even during the day, I sensed some presences while I was walking on the streets, like it was like something following me or something. And basically, like I was poking at a certain spot, and like they were poking back
Yeah.
at me. So when you're like certain places are not just guarded physically,
Right.
but they're guarded on a higher level as well. So they're guarded against like intruders or like anyone who would like to spy on those spots, basically.
Right.
And so I kind of dealt with that after like a few days after it became very weird. I dealt with that, and that was about it. At least that's what I thought. But in that period of time, like I wanted to propose my girlfriend, like she's my wife now, and I was like searching for the perfect spot, like, and I remembered that there was this city, like an historic city, where there are like castles and cool buildings, and she had like some cool experiences there in the past. So I was like, hey, like we could totally go there. And she was like, yeah, like we should totally go there. And I was like, okay, it's done. I'm booking a trip or a hotel or something. And since we didn't have a car at that back then, I was like, I don't care where it is. Like I go to the bus and it takes me there. So who cares?
Right.
So we went there and we like spent a few days there already. And the hotel was up at the top of the mountain, up above the city, basically. And we missed I don't know how you call that thing that like skiers go up through the mountain,
The
like
ski lift. Ski lift.
cabin or yeah, something like that. It's a cabin that goes on the ski lift or something. And we missed the last one, so we had to like get a taxi and like to take us up the mountain, because like it's quite a few kilometers through the forest with bears and wildlife. And so we do that, and it was quite a boring trip. I think it lasted for like an hour, maybe less. And you have these like local taxis, and they have like these tourist brochures in them to like sightseeing stuff or things like that. And I was like going through it, and I recognized the mountains. Like it had this very specific name, and it had like a cave associated with it, which had like very strange stuff happened there. And it was like all these folk tales were woven around that place. And I was like, I recognized the picture, what I've seen on the internet as well with that place. And I just took a look at the map and like realized like, holy shit, like the hotel is on top of the mountain.
Oh my
I'm
god.
like, okay. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like did some clearing on the mountain basically. But by the time like I got there, like it was almost like there was nothing there anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what exactly happened, but it felt very empty when I got there. But I kind of seen like megalithic stuff underneath the mountain. But yeah, I couldn't really see much about it. It was intentionally kept dark for some
Yeah.
reason.
That makes sense. I mean, I have had the similar, I mean, not that's a really awesome story. The when we do remote viewing or astral, we go to the same location on a different energetic plane. And
Mhm.
so we see things, and sometimes to me, and this is just me saying it, it feels like we're going to a different time when we're in this remote viewing or astral
Oh
sometimes.
yeah,
Like
yeah, you
so
can travel in time too. So
mhm. So you're going to at a place in a going to the same place where the energy that's left behind already or still is already there or still there sometimes. And so like I've done the same thing. I've done a lot of underground work over the years that I've done in remote viewing ways. And then I'll end up there in a physical way. And it just feels like just regular, empty. It feels hollow. Like it feels like it's not as solid as it should be, but there's nothing there anymore energetically. It's fascinating.
yeah, I'm not sure why I went there, but I guess like maybe I cleaned out the rest of
Yeah,
what was there. Not
I'm
sure.
sure. I'm
But yeah,
sure.
like we have these very strange tells of certain mountains. Like another one is to the west, basically. And I'm not sure like how legit the whole thing is. Like there's a story around like the 70s, like that miners, it's basically a gold mine, and that miners found, man, like giants of skeletons of giants or something. Like
Yeah.
that's the folk tale or something, the gossip about regarding that place. But what really happened is like, at least what we know about it, that the mine was closed down, and like the KGB came down from Moscow to take over the site for some reason. So
Wow.
they found something supposedly. But what is even more interesting, like this was in the 70s, and like in 2013 or 14, we had like this huge protests because this Canadian company wanted to like buy that mine, which was a gold mine, and they wanted to like extract gold by, I don't know, like intoxicating everything with cyanide. Basically, they would have like killed the whole environment in that region, and like
Right.
there was this huge protest across the country to like stop that from happening. So even if like nothing was there, like what an interesting coincidence that like a Western huge corporation like wants to buy up that specific area to like have it all to themselves and like do
Yeah.
whatever they want there. So maybe there's something more to it than just like gossip and stuff like that.
Right. And I 100% don't believe there's any mountain. The way we describe what a mountain is, every single one of these large hills, mountain, there's something about it that whether it's something that's gone or something that's still there, there's something about these places that energetically pull us because we know what to do in those moments. And you're brought there for that specific reason. Also the giant thing's a big deal. Like it's a and I been getting a lot of stuff about these giants and the revelation of them, like bringing forward the truth of them and that they've been a real thing for so long. It's been going on for a couple of years now, but it's getting more and more strong and then now, like you said, suddenly, at least around here too, is they're talking about these giants now, this specifically giants. That's the moment that this is what we're supposed to be, whatever looking over here at for whatever reason people are talking about giants instead of whatever else is happening. But this is an old story. We're being reminded of old stories so we can remember the truth of the moment, right? And like, you know, and to bring something so beautiful as the proposal of marriage to your wife or your girlfriend at the time, to this healing, like that is full on heart chakra activation if there's nothing else, right? Like that's beautiful. And that you were you didn't even know you were going there. Like you were meant to be there. And all of these things, that's what happens. Your story is so cool, Guardian. We could talk for 5 hours and not be done, you
Probably.
know? Yeah. There's and Elsa, she's the decoder. She comes in, she says, minders for miners, Minders, mind closed down. Wow, so much coming through from you two. Thank you. Thank you, Elsa, for joining us. I've missed seeing her. Yep, 5 years later, 5 hours later. I don't know what that reference was, but so that's so cool that. So then you asked your girlfriend at the time to marry you. Were you on that mountain when you did it?
No, no. No. But we were close, kind of, so it wasn't that far away.
That's cool. That's really cool. There's so much ancient mysticism that you've brought forward today. I'm sure that people are going to have to rewind it a bunch of times. Is there anything that we missed? Like, I feel like I keep feeling like we should go back to the Hermeticism a little bit, and I also want to go back to the Hungarian thing a little bit. Like, there's so many things that.
And we kind of burnt out all the Hungarian stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I only was preoccupied with it at that time, and since then I wouldn't say I left it behind, but I really transitioned out there with all I know, ancient Egyptian, Atlantean stuff and all that.
Right.
It's way beyond the Hungarian things.
Yeah, I feel you. I would say that why I'm so, it's 555. Why I'm so fascinated with it right now is that you said a lot of important words that were floating around that for me that needed to come forward just then too. For whatever reason, my mother started to refer to me as Mystic Pamela is what she calls me. And so, I find that word that you use to be really, I know that that's not the literal translation. And would you mind saying the word? The Hungarian word for it?
Oh yeah, it's called tartos.
Tartos. Did I say it right? Sort of. No,
really.
I didn't. Nothing close. Will you say it again?
Tartos.
I'll try when no one's listening again.
Okay. Oh, by the way, you can find it on Wikipedia. We don't really have much about it.
Okay. That's really cool. And for anyone who wants to connect with Guardian, you're not doing sessions right now? Is that what you said?
I will not do it this year, but maybe the beginning of January we can. Yeah. Awesome.
For anyone who is interested, Guardian is a amazing practitioner, and I wouldn't send anyone to anyone else, to be truthful. Guardian's where I'd send them first. Anyway, first is the right word when it comes to this type of thing. Someone actually asked me earlier, Melissa asked me how I got through that facial. It turns out there's a term for it. She wrote it. It was in the book that Guardian here channeled. That part when it comes to I'm still looking for her comment so I can find the right word, but I'll figure it out later. Anyway, she wanted to know where the keys to freedom. What was that called again? I can never remember that.
The key to freedom of mind.
Why is that so hard for me to remember?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how correct it is in English, but
maybe that's why.
Something that Master Yoda would say, probably.
Yeah. And you can find that in Guardian of Orion's YouTube channel, or Jay Zoltan. You can find that in his YouTube channel, and that's on the you go to the home page and there's the link you can click to take you to the PDF or any of the resources. Is that right?
Yeah, you have Kindle or Google Books.
Right.
We don't have printed version right now, but I hope
okay.
we will have in the future.
And there's because of the way that those platforms work, there has to be a small charge in order to get that transaction.
The Kindle one, I think it's 99 cents, but the other ones are free. So
cool. Awesome.
Choose
it's not about making money for Guardian. He was guided right away to make this as free as possible. And
yeah, I'm not going to get rich by sharing that book. So.
Yeah. It was very, very transformational thing for me and for a lot of people. So if any of you do get a chance to, I strongly suggest that you go over there and check it out. And if there is any mentor that I would point to say that who was the most pivotal assistance for me in my reawakening journey, and then coming out into the world, it was definitely Guardian here. And I just want to say again, from my deepest heart, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm also very grateful because like we had like we were each other's catalysts. So
Yeah.
I'm also very grateful for having you in my life too. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you. Oh, it's just, I'm just gonna cry. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close out today?
I'm not sure. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me and being my guest today. I really appreciate it. I
Awesome to
know it's
be
like
here.
2 o'clock in the morning for you, and you're just a trooper. And this is a morning person doing this. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah, like
And you
I purposefully overslept today up until like 9:30. So I
good.
can be here.
Well, thank you for doing that. And you guys can expect to see us working as more of a team in the future. I don't know what we're going to come up with, but I know that it's something that we've been talking about doing for a bit. So you can look for that probably after the new year, perhaps.
Mhm. Awesome. Can't wait for that.
Me too. Well, thank you, Guardian. I love you. And I love you all very much. Thank you for joining us today. You're not alone. Just keep going and try some of that transmutation. All
Yeah, you will enjoy it.
right. Thank you, Guardian.
Have an awesome day, everyone. Bye.